Today I'm going to talk about having gas on the trail. Some people find that to be a problem. And they'll carry solid fuel or alcohol instead of butane, propane mixture, or straight butane like I carry. I know what you're thinking. So in my opinion, you can't beat these little gas canisters, no matter what kind of stove, butane, propane mixed stove you're using. I use strictly butane because I refill my own, which I'll talk about in a minute. But, I use the most inefficient stove. If you were to look at any kind of test on gas stoves, backpacking stoves, this little BRS stove is way down the list as far as efficiency, but it weighs a half an ounce. A lot of people say, they're gonna break. I've had this thing for at least 3 years, maybe longer, 4, and I use it all the time and it's never failed me. But if that was your fear, it weighs a half ounce, so carry 2 of them, have a backup. First time I saw it was on the PCT. I was always near this trail family, and a guy, JP, he had one, and I was sitting on the trail cooking with my jet boil one day, and they decided to stop there, and they were all going to eat, and he pulled this out, and I'd never seen one before, and I asked him about it. He said, when he gets done with the trail, he was probably going to buy a jet boil, but I was thinking, gosh, you're in Washington, this thing's lasted you all summer, the whole PCT, can't be all bad. So the next year I was section hiking on the AT. I started at Katahdin and went south, and it was like the wettest year, June, since like 82. And I stepped on some roots one day, and just like ice, my feet came out from under me. I fell on my pack right where my jet boil was and just crushed it. And after that, I bought this thing, and I don't think I'm ever going back. I like this little thing. And actually, I think they've become so popular now when I look online. This was like 16 bucks on Amazon. There's a bunch of companies making something that I can't tell the difference, whether they make their own or just buy these and put their name on them. But anyway, it's become a very popular stove. And again, my setup, when I do carry a stove now, is probably the most inefficient you could have, because number one, this, if you look on any testing sites, this comes in like next to last as far as efficiency. And I'm going to be boiling water on a tall cylindrical cup, which is from my Grail water filter, and so I really have to keep the flame kind of low to catch the bottom of that. If I had a wider base, of course, it would catch more heat. But I don't really care, because I'm still going to get probably 1.5 dozen, 2 dozen boils out of this, and that would be a full cup. And most of the time I'm boiling a half cup to add to beans and rice. I'd boil a whole cup if I'm going to have hot chocolate or tea. But over the course of, say, a month on the trail, I'm probably going to just use one of these, because I don't heat every day. And a lot of people would argue that, the reason a lot of people go to cold soaking is they don't have to stop. They're trying to do mileage. And, my setup, if you don't count the cup, which I'm already carrying, a full canister of this is probably 7 ounces. So I'm, usually I don't fill them all the way. So I'm probably carrying 7 ounces to cook, and that 7 ounces can cost you some mileage. And the argument that people that cold soak will use is, I add water, I keep walking. When I stopped, I'm ready to eat an hour or so down the trail. Well, you still have to stop and eat. So all we're talking, the difference is stopping and boiling a cup of water or a half a cup of water, which takes 3 or 4 minutes. So, for me to set up my stove, boil a cup of water, pour it into my meal, and eat it, I can be, you know, up and gone when most people are filtering water. So a lot of times I'll plan a hot meal during the day when I'm going to put my tent up and let it air out if it's been condensated at night. So, you know, you're talking a very small amount of time, and I don't think it costs me any miles. I still get big miles in every day, whether I'm carrying and just doing cold soaking or whether I'm cooking a meal. And the other argument with these things would be they're hard to find. Well, they really aren't that hard to find anymore, because especially on long trails, you know, retailers aren't stupid. They find out what these people coming through town want, and then they order it because they know they'll sell it. But I seldom buy these things because a lot of times I don't want to carry a full one. I'll go into just about any hardware store in any town, find these sterno butane fuel cartridges. That's why I say I'm pretty much burning just on butane, where these are a mixture. And I just have in my first aid kit, I carry a little filler. And so this can actually has 2 of these canisters in it. And I only want one, so why would I, you know, buy a whole can of that if I'm only going to use half of it or less? Well, these are probably, on average, I see these about $7. I buy these from $1.50 to $3, and there's, again, 2 of these in there. So what I do is I just have this little filler, and I will fill my canister whatever I want. And then if I'm near, I try to be near a hiker box. If I can find an empty canister, I'll fill that and leave it in the hiker box. Otherwise, I just leave this in there for someone who might, because a lot of people are carrying refillers now. It's crazy not to. This thing weighs practically nothing, and it'll save you a ton of money, a ton of hassle trying to find canisters when you can't find them. And again, it takes minutes to fill a canister. So you know I don't like to fiddle, but I have tried everything over the years. I've told you this before. For years I used a zip stove. I probably at least 15 years I used that zip stove, and I liked it. You know, at the time everything wasn't lightweight. That whole system weighed a pound, so you know, it was a twig stove, but the firebox was about this big around. Mine was titanium, had a little titanium fan that hooked to the bottom, ran off a AA battery, and worked just like a blacksmith's forge. And then I had a, you know, pretty big Tokes pot that would fit on top of that, and everything would nest together. Soot really wasn't a problem because I just kept it in a bag, and the soot stayed away from all the rest of my gear. And, you know, I could sit down and fire that thing up, but it definitely took more than 3 or 4 minutes, you know, just to, even if I had maybe collected wood during the day, just to get the fire going, get it up to speed, boil my water, wait for it all to turn to ash so I wasn't going to burn anything down, and take care of those ashes and put everything away. You know, it was kind of a hassle, but at the time, you know, that was just what I did. And then as I tried to get away from that, you know, I ended up with this jet boil. It was quick, but heavy compared to what I'm carrying now. I've tried alcohol stoves. I mean, you're gonna have to carry as much weight in alcohol as you do in one of these things to get the same amount of boils, and you're gonna wait 10, 12 minutes. I mean, you look on YouTube, you'll see people in their basement doing alcohol stove burns and timing it and temperature wise and everything. But when you're out in the field, you can plan on 10, 15 minutes boiling a, you know, cup of water. Those things are just slow. And then if there's any wind at all, you've got to deal with that. You got to have windscreens. To me, there's just no contest between solid fuel, alcohol, a white gas, I mean, you name it, a twig stove, they won't hold a candle to how fast and efficient this gas is. So like I say, I could live without carrying a stove and eating cold meals, but what this opens up for me for very little weight, like I say, probably 7 ounces, and it goes down as I use this gas. I can make tea, I can make hot chocolate, sometimes I miss those things. I make freezer bag omelets all the time when I'm carrying a stove, and I kind of miss that. I just boil it in a Ziploc freezer bag in my pot and make great omelets. The other thing is, I've told this story before. The first time I ever did it was on the Great Divide Trail. It was a really wet, kind of cold summer because I did it July, August, and I got into a sleet storm north part of the trail, and my feet were, and this was the days when you had the heavier boots, and my feet were just like blocks of ice, just frozen. And I stopped and I made coffee one day, and before the water started boiling, I thought, my feet are already wet. I wonder if I just pour this in my boot. And it worked great. And once I got up and started walking again, my feet never got cold again that day. So again, your feet are already wet, pour some warm water in it. A lot of people will build a fire and stick their boots up there until their boots burn, but that heat never gets to your feet, so you can get it to your feet instantly with some warm water. So that's another thing. And the other thing is, which probably should be another video, is freeze-dried meals that I buy in number 10 cans. And I've got a lot of that, and a lot of it's really good. A lot of these meals that you get hooked on, then the company stops selling them in bulk, and they'll only sell them in those 2 and single meal versions, which are very expensive. And even cold soaking now, a lot of these companies are making these meals for cold soakers, and you just add water. And one of my favorite that Mountain House used to make and stopped making completely, not just number 10 cans, but single individual bags also, was chicken salad. It was so good. Just add water and you had fresh chicken salad on the trail. And I couldn't get it for a long time, but I see now there are other companies that are making it. I don't know if it's freeze-dried or dehydrated, but they're making chicken salads. But they're $13 for a chicken salad. I'm not paying that. I'm sorry. I'm not cheap. I'm frugal. And even much as I love this stuff, before I did that, even though I've said these companies during COVID, these freeze-dried companies, doubled the price on everything, and now that COVID's over, they haven't come back down, and I vote with my dollars, so I refuse to buy this expensive meat. But cheaper than buying a $13 one packet of, say, chicken salad, you can buy freeze-dried diced chicken, probably under $60 for a can of it, which would give you a lot of it. And then buy some freeze-dried onions, freeze-dried celery, and mix it together and throw some Thousand Island or mayo in there, and you've got chicken salad. You probably have $3 instead of 13 in it. So those meals, a lot of those freeze-dried meals, you really can't cold soak. So if you carry a stove, you add water, you can eat them immediately. Buy them in number 10 cans. You got a whole lot less money on them. Package them yourself in the quantities you want, and then you can add things maybe to them that you want. A lot of options there. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents on carrying a gas stove. Keep smiling.